Excuse me.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
All right, Rod, it is the bye week for the 49ers. The football slate was pretty terrible today, too. I don't know how many people who are 49er fans decided to sit there and watch some of these games. But in the background, I have the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Seahawks just took a 10-point lead, and the Cardinals are doing very Cardinal-like stuff with less than 2 minutes left in that game. So if if you're hanging out with us, I'll keep you in the loop on that game and maybe switch back to that Rams-Bucks game. But holy cow, that was a bad one. Oh man. So what we are going to do here today, since we don't have a game to recap, and that's kind of what we do on this show is we recap the game that had just happened, is we're going to do a mid-season review. We're going to look at the rest of the schedule, and our Facebook group didn't actually know I was priming them for content, but I asked some questions, what people thought the record would be at the end of the season, and also what they thought were the biggest surprises and the biggest disappointments of the season. So we'll use those answers to kind of drive our conversation here. So Facebook group members, thank you very much for the content there. So let's start with the record. What is going to be the record for the 49ers at the end of the season? I have the schedule here, and we'll look at that here in a second. But currently, Niners are 4-4. We've talked about two games that were just, pretty just poor ways to lose, including that opener against teams that the 49ers should beat. But 4-4 is actually kind of okay, I think. If you sort of look towards how the NFL works these days with the wild card and with, Seattle's clearly going to win this game. So they're going to move up to 6-3. So they'll be 2.5 games ahead of the Niners at this point. So the Niners will have some ground to gain because I think the easiest step to the playoffs is, as we talked about last week, is winning that division. But what was your guess for the record at the end of the season?
See, here's the thing for me. I said 10-7.
Okay.
So that means 6-3. But when I go game by game, I have a hard time finding 3 losses.
Interesting.
So, I mean,
okay, well, and we'll go game by game because I have the schedule and I'll pull it up. I think 10-7 is likely. I think that will get them into the tournament. We had some people say 11-6 in the Facebook group. We also had one person, I think, say 9-8. And then if you go 9-8, it's getting a little murkier as far as making the playoffs here. So let's pull up the schedule and we can go through the rest of the games and let's see if we can find the 3 losses here. So week 10 is against the Chargers, and that game is at home. That game is on Sunday night, so that will be next weekend, and you and I will be back after that game. That is a winnable game for sure, especially because you're at home and the Chargers are so inconsistent. They're poorly coached, I guess. I would also say they seem to have some winnable games that they don't take care of. They are currently, as the standings are right now, they are 5-3. So better record than the Niners, but they also have a -22 net points. So that could be a little bit of a paper tiger there. But I'm assuming that is on your win.
Yeah, and I that was my morning game today. I sat through that nonsense. And we match up well against them. You can run the ball, they will allow you to, if we can stop, just not turn the ball over or have penalties, they're there to be had in terms of sustained drives and running the ball. All the things that we do well, they seem to do poorly. So I just think that is a winnable game for sure.
And they beat the Falcons, who beat us by 3 points.
Yeah, that's true. But still, Atlanta just isn't very good. And Mariota played okay, but they're just kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they don't really, they've got Drake London and Pitts who look like they're good players, but they just don't seem like they want to throw them the ball.
Yeah. And they got Patterson back today. He's been on
and
IR for a few weeks there.
He looked really good. Boy, he's a big dude. But I think that's a win.
All right, and then the next game is the one that you'll be going to, and I think we're to the point where Niners swept the Rams. They have 1 win against Seattle, and in order for this to happen, to where they have a shot here, I think they got to sweep the Cardinals as well. So this game is in Mexico City, technically a road game for the Niners, but also a road game for the Cardinals. I would imagine there's going to be more Niner fans in that stadium, but I don't know for sure. But that is a game where they should, if we're looking at sort of statement wins, beating a struggling Cards team should be part of that, and beating them decisively. The Cardinals, as we're talking about, they're losing to Seattle. They just lost that game, so they drop to 3-6. And their net points is in the -30, so that should be another one on your win list. Yes.
Yeah, and they just seem like a mess. I was listening to the game or watching the game, and they were talking about how they've got 3 replacement offensive linemen. Kyler seems to be cussing everybody out every 3 plays, and they just, I don't know how long Kingsbury can continue there. I think that again, this is one of those layups that but we missed several layups earlier this year, so that's always a concern. But I think that's another team that we should handle pretty easily.
And I just turned it to Rams Bucks. Not that the Rams don't look great here, but talk about a quarterback who is frustrated. Rams are up 7. No, they're up 4, and Tom Brady in the end zone has a surefire touchdown pass. I couldn't tell who the receiver was, but he hits the receiver literally in the face mask, and the ball's dropped. And then on 3rd and goal, he's got another shot, and good defensive play by the Rams, but still should have been caught by who I think it was the tight end. So Brady's going to be frustrated. Okay, so after
He's got
that,
51 pass attempts already. My God.
And they got 9 points.
Oh.
And so then week 12, this game to me, a little bit harder, but it is at home. The Saints have been playing some interesting football. They are not, they are record-wise not great in record-wise, but all of their games have been really close. They've been playing some close football, and so record-wise, you would think, okay, Niners should win that game. But I think that one is a sneaky sort of, maybe one of those games that earlier in the season we talked about where they probably should have won and maybe didn't. But I don't know. I think they're a better football team than the Saints, but that's one where the Saints seem to be able to stick around these games.
Yeah. Where is that? Is that a road game?
That is at home.
Okay. Well, yeah. They're frisky, so that's one that coming off that game in Mexico City, it's a Monday night, so it's a short week. That could be one. That could be one.
They should have Alex Smith and Joe Staley at that game.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll be fun.
Definitely.
All right. So after that, Niners
We're gonna have
have
Jimmy's gonna run an end around 30
there you
yards.
go. There you go. Another game that is probably going to be pretty tough. The Dolphins at home, week 13. Mike McDaniel, the return. And the Dolphins, the Dolphins are playing good football. They're not. They may be a little bit of a paper tiger when it comes to how good they are, because they give up a lot of points and they're
Yeah.
eking out some of these games, but they are 6-3. That could be a little bit of a let's see how true what kind of team they are from truth. And look, the 49ers don't want to lose to the Dolphins. They want to have their pick to be the worst pick possible for the Dolphins, because the Dolphins have all these picks. Is that the one that they traded for Chubb? Did they trade the Niners pick?
Yes. So now that's the Broncos pick.
Yeah. So but good game. McDaniel's going to be up for it, but same with Kyle, right? Like there could be a nice little who knows who best there with the schemes and such.
Kyle seems to do well against his former assistants, Ask McVay and LaFleur.
Exactly. And then week 14 against this really frustrating Bucs team, and they're about to lose this game to the Rams here. Niners should win that game. Tom Brady homecoming back to the Bay Area, but I'm calling that one. Like that one's got to be a win for the Niners there, because the Bucs are just really bad right now.
Will the Bucs still even be? Will they have thrown in the towel by then? That's where are they now? Since with this loss, they'll
be 3-6, right?
Ooh,
3-6.
Yeah, that's rough. That might be, with all that's going on and swirling around there, that might be a team that is has kind of mailed it in by then. We can't count on that, but yeah, I think that should be a win as well.
Maybe Jed will get a box for Giselle.
There you go. There you go.
And then the big game that you sort of circle on the schedule is week 15 at Seattle, historically a hard place for the Niners to play, and that is on Thursday night. So there's your Amazon Prime game if you are outside of the Bay Area. Thursday night against the Hawks, and the Hawks just won another game. They are a much better team than anybody could have possibly predicted them to be. Pete Carroll, his rah-rah stuff is working terrifically. They're 6-3, and the net points is not as good as the Niners are, but still 6-3. You're out in the lead, and it's really your division to lose at this point.
Well, I mean, I'll take the L on this one, because I thought they were going to be, in the mix for a top 3 draft pick. And clearly, I mean, we're halfway through now, and I guess they're not going to go away. So, I mean, for what it's, but I've watched them several times, and I still don't walk away like super impressed. But I mean, they win. Gino's playing well. Kenneth Walker looks like he's for real. And then those receivers are legit. Metcalf and Lockett are legitimate top of the league type receivers. So, I mean, they don't look like they're going away. So you're right. We're going to have to deal with them.
And then last 3 games, 2 home games and a road game. Against the Commanders, who I think are probably a little bit better than people thought. They are record-wise, they're only 4-5, but they've been playing a little closer than I think some of these teams thought that they would play. But still, that has to be a W for the 49ers if they're gonna do what we think that they're gonna do. At the Raiders, the poor Raiders fans. Well,
that's going to be a home game. I can tell you that right now.
They're not in Oakland anymore, so I don't feel as bad, but there are still longtime Raiders fans who aren't going to give up on them. But 2-6, man. Who again, the net points, which is what I like to use to really see if the team's good or bad. They're in these close games, but man, did they just lose to Jacksonville today?
Yeah.
That's tough. And then the last game of the season at home against the Cardinals. And again, if the Niners are who we think they are, they got to beat up on a team like the Cardinals.
So see, we came up with like one loss.
Yeah. and just to go back to this, I think the tough games. Now we'll see what kind of Niners team comes out against the Chargers, because the Chargers are not a bad team. The Chargers are a decent team who probably should even be a little bit better than they are. The Saints game scares me. The Dolphins game scares me. The Seahawks game scares me. So that's 3 that scare me. The others are kind of gimmies at this point, though, and it really goes back to the consistency of their play, which we're going to get into, because when we go through the disappointments and everything, that like the lack of consistency game to game from them has been a little frustrating to watch, like how they could not get up for certain games and then just be like killing the Rams, and then not being able to to play strong football against some other teams. So let's talk about let's go biggest disappointment so far. And so I asked this question to our group, and not surprisingly in any way, I think the biggest disappointment of the season is the fact that Trey Lance has not been able to get on the field. He's not been able to take advantage of a lost year of development, right? As QB1, they turned the team over to him. There's going to be a little bit more, I guess, the offense is looked at to be a little bit more dynamic. The run pass, the making, the defense watch for another player, all of that stuff that we were so much looking forward to didn't happen. But I think even more importantly, this young guy has now missed essentially 2 seasons of football. And, it's kind of, it's funny because we're both Warriors fans. It's like this James Wiseman thing.
Yep, absolutely.
And you're just like, man, how do you get the reps and how do you get ready? You're going to be a third season guy and really only have the reps of a rookie. And so that's something to worry about for Lance. But as far as disappointment is concerned, this got to be number 1, right?
Well, shout out to Robert Ramos, who was the first person in the group to mention Trey, because I had I guess I had a mental block because I had completely
I mean, it was the first week, like the first half of this,
but
the second game of the season or whatever.
I was like, I had straight PTSD over that, so I had completely forgotten that one. So when he mentioned that, so obviously that is number 1. And then I guess disappointment, as I was thinking about that when you put it in the group, I guess when you talk about expectations,
yeah,
I guess for me it would be Kinlaw, because we had been told that this is the healthiest that he had been, and I have been saying all along that what's not talked about enough is how poor medical treatment and strength and conditioning is at the collegiate level.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not shocked at all when a player comes in and comes in with a checkered medical past, because there's no telling. It varies so greatly down there as to what kind of care and development they're getting. So once you get them into a pro situation with good medical and everything, that's when you can tell. And so now this off season, he was supposed to be the healthiest ever. So now it's like what we got, 500-600 snaps, 700 snaps at least, and then we can start talking about what we've got. And we haven't got it. So that is disappointing. But it's funny. I was talking to somebody else this week about this same thing, and it's funny how perception drives the narrative, in that there's a lot of disappointment with Kinlaw, and I guess rightfully so, because he hasn't been out there.
It's also because of who he replaced, right?
That's true. That's true. Which, I mean, is fair or not. That's that's not his fault.
No.
But that's part of it. But he seems to get a lot of negative flack in amongst the fan base due to his missed time. That, like, for example, Elijah Mitchell, for example.
Yeah.
Elijah Mitchell has missed 48% of his eligible games, and Kinlaw is at 51. But the perception between the two amongst the fan base is completely different.
Yes.
I rarely hear anybody giving Elijah Mitchell any stuff about his missed games, but Kinlaw is like he's a bust because of the missed games. I'm not, I'm not one to label people, but it frustrates me that people are so quick to want to label these people anything. I mean, let's just let it play out. Let's see. Maybe he is. I don't know. I know he's talented.
Yep.
I know he hasn't been on the field. Those two things are true. I'd like to get a good stretch of games of him being out there for us to know for sure what he is. So, but he definitely qualifies for me as most disappointing. Then you got Danny Gray is on the list as well. But if you look back to like IU, we could see a pattern with Kyle and his receivers. So like I say, that's why I say expectations drive the narrative, because I don't know how much we really thought Danny Gray was going to see the field this, as a rookie, knowing that, as Ayuk, you've heard Ayuk and Debo and Jennings all say that if you don't have your assignments on point and if you're not blocking, you're not going to see the field and you're not going to see the ball. So I don't know how much you can expect from a rookie receiver in this system.
Yeah. Just Shelvin posted in a comment here that Brady just beat the Rams, and I kind of had the game on in the side of in the corner, and I saw the Rams open up. They ran a little jet sweep with Kupp, and then he slid, and then I don't know what happened after that, because you and I were talking. All of a sudden, I saw Brady had the ball in the red zone, and he threw a pass that Rams got called for PI, and then he just he just threw a touchdown pass. And won the game. It's amazing. So here's the Danny Gray thing for me, and he is on this list that we have here for disappointments. The way that we have been sold as fans is that Kyle is looking for opportunities to put guys in places and be creative, and so you would think, like, okay, Danny Gray is fast as all hell. How about let's just go Ronaldo Nehemiah with him, and let's just run him deep a couple of times, even if the idea is not to throw the football to him, just to give the defense the thought that, okay, like, we got to pay attention to this guy. And then, maybe Jimmy does throw one to draw the defense a little bit. But, the thing about it is, I just think that other teams don't see Jimmy as that guy. So maybe that doesn't even work on that end. But could you get him for a jet sweep? Could you get him on a wide receiver screen? Stuff like that, where, you would think, wow, Kyle can be so creative and he can get these guys out in spaces and make plays. But at the same time, he doesn't trust these guys to perform at the level he expects them to. when they're in the game. And it seems like that stems from practice, right? It seems like if
Mhm.
he doesn't believe you had a good week of practice or that you're picking things up enough, he's just flat out not even going to let you. Like, that's a message to him, which it kind of hurts the team in a sense, but that's the way he coaches. And,
Mhm.
he's not letting these guys get away with practice or whatever. They have all the technology. And what was the thing about Ayuk prior to last season was he wasn't running his routes hard enough in practice, and they could tell because they have the miles per hour on him. And so it's stuff like that. But as a fan, you're like, I don't care about that. I just want to see this guy. Like, we've been sold on the idea that this is the fastest guy on the team. We can't see that. So that's kind of a little bit of disconnect between the fan and the actual team being coached on the field.
I think the Trey injury hurt him and Ray McCloud a lot in terms of what I know for a fact from based on what we saw in camp with those guys and Trey. They they got a lot of action deep, and it seemed like if there was one thing that Trey really was comfortable doing is throwing the ball deep to those guys, and those guys were the ones who were out there going and getting it. And I can imagine that when he gets hurt, Kyle just kind of balls all that up and throws it in the trash, and or files it to the back of his folder for next year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I think that I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. These next two are really interesting to me.
Okay, so but even before that, there's defensive line depth because of the injuries. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough one because the depth is I don't know if the defensive line has really been the problem
Mm-mm.
with this team, especially if you're putting in third and fourth and fifth guys. I think that they've held up. There's been a couple of games where the Niners offense hasn't played well enough to win, and we sort of expected the defense to take over, and it didn't happen. And one of the games that you keep mentioning is that Falcons game where they had like 7 starters missing,
Right.
and that I can see that being pointing to that. But the next two that you're talking about, poor special teams play and a general lack of consistency. I actually wrote this twice on accident. Special teams play, especially after overhauling the unit. So, from the special teams perspective, this one is interesting because Big Money Mitch is having a really good season.
He really is.
Robbie Gold has missed. He's 10 of 13. He's been fine. I think where this kind of points to is, I'm guessing Ray in kick returns. I think because punt returns he's been pretty decent as well, and it's really just been kick returns and then giving up kick returns on the other side. I guess that's where that comes from. But I think this is still a much better special teams unit than last year.
Yes, I think so too. The again, I never want to be like the apologist for the team, but I think the lack of consistency, you have to point to injuries to, I mean, that's got to be part of it. It kind of goes along part and parcel with what we were talking about with the defensive line depth is that, it is a deep unit, but when you start asking those depth pieces to play, roles that are outside of what, that you're not supposed, I mean, Ridgeway is not supposed to be playing 70 snaps. That, and if when you get those guys, when you got Spence playing a lot of snaps, that's just not what they're there for. They're supposed to be there to blow guys, to not. Sorry about that. That didn't come out the way that didn't come out the way it was supposed to give guys a rest.
Yes.
Not to be playing a lot of snaps. So when
Yes.
and that goes back to, I think once Armstead comes back, things will be a lot better if he is anywhere near um his peak. That has been a big, and in Kinslaw too, to a lesser extent. I think I had high expectations for him this
Yeah.
season. I really expected him to come in and fill that DJ Jones role, and he hasn't been obviously anywhere near that, and so that's a problem. But yeah, that the lack of consistency, I think you can go part and parcel. Trent has been in and out of the lineup. We missed Nick for a couple games. We missed Debo for a couple games. I mean, it's just it's hard to and then you got the whole thing with the right guard where you got those guys going in and out. It would be nice if we could just get a solid unit together for 2 or 3 games and kind of see where that leaves us. And maybe that's maybe that's Pollyannish, and that's the NFL, that attrition is part of it and injuries are part of it, and you just have to deal with that, and there's an expectation of being consistent in spite of that.
It's funny just about this current NFL. Like, it is, there's going to be studies, I think, on kind of how the NFL works today. You look at Rodgers, like, that guy has aged 5 years since last year. They're 2-6. And the two top teams, Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings, 8-0 and 7-1. The Bills lost to the Jets today. Robert Saleh and his crew. The Chiefs are 5-2. They play the Sunday night game, but it's just the good teams are going to be good, but it just feels like the way that the league works and the way that the rules work, they very much so. And maybe this is what Paul Tagliabue wanted back in the day, but
Parity.
everyone's 8-8, right? Like,
Mhm.
essentially, or at least the value of what an 8-8 team is like. So,
And to further your point about the top two teams, the Vikings, the Commanders gave them everything they wanted today.
Yeah.
It was like a last second field goal to win that game. So that just furthers your point that it's the margin for error is, so you get blowouts like the Bengals and the Panthers today, but pretty much, man, every game halfway through the fourth quarter is a 1-score game. So yeah, it's just part of it. Even the best teams can be got, as they say, on any given Sunday.
The Bills just look like world beaters.
Yeah.
And they're 6-2. They're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like, there's the runaway team is the Eagles, and some of that has to do with they just have a really, really light schedule.
Yeah.
All right. So the last one here, this one is an interesting one. Debo, not really getting a lot of the plays that he has in the backfield, they seem to be very well scouted. Like, this man does not have any room to breathe. It's almost like the other team knows that he's getting the ball, which they kind of knew it last year too, and they couldn't stop it. You line this dude up in the backfield, ball's probably coming to him, and it was so dynamic last year. And this year, he has rarely had any luck with any room to run in those positions.
But I would kind of push back on that was a relatively late in the season situation where the offense, basically we ran it through Debo, from for the last 5 games, basically is when he put us on his back and carried us to the conference championship. And it was different this season. It seemed like we came in with the thought that the whole thing was going to run through Debo, and it like you say, it was being well scouted, and I think that he's probably going to end up being the biggest beneficiary of the CMC trade.
Yes,
Is the
I think
fact
so
that
too.
now you're not going to be able. I'm not to say that the offense shouldn't be still centered around him. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that defenses won't be able to just key on him to stop him, because you've got another viable um 1A, and then just having those two, just and then Mitchell back, and then it seems like the emergence of Ayuk, and then you still got Kittle kind of is still a guy that you can build a game plan around. And then this team, there are just so many weapons, and that's the reason why I'm really excited about the second half of the season, and that if we can just get the O-line to be just stable. I mean, they don't have to be world beaters. If they can just, going back and looking at it, numerically, they really haven't played awful. Burford has some real up and down performances, and when you go back and look at it game by game, we've had some real unfortunate penalties at really inopportune times that set us back, and that it's death for us. Second and 15 is just death. I mean, we have to, if we look forward to what we have to look forward to moving forward, is we have to eliminate those penalties, especially the big ones, 15 yarders and whatnot, because we aren't built to overcome those. So again, I'm really excited as we move forward, if we could just get some consistency there on that offensive line, because we have so many weapons.
And the penalties are probably a little bit down because Greenlaw hasn't been playing. I'm just kidding.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so let's talk about the surprises of the season so far. And the first one's got to be trading for a game breaker like McCaffrey. Now, all of the people who study this stuff, they don't really think this is a strong trade for the 49ers because of what they gave up and the fact that Christian is oft injured, but also that Shanahan can kind of turn, these backs who aren't very highly thought of in college, and turn them into big players. Mostert is in Miami, and who's the guy before Mostert? The speed guy,
Breida,
the cheetah, and you have guys like that who are not high draft picks, and putting them in this system and having them learn the system, they excelled. Now, with Christian, this position at running back should now be on steroids because of how good of a player he is, and out of the backfield, how good of a player he is, because that is what we have not had in recent memory, is just that back out of the backfield to make plays and to be the bailout for Jimmy. So in that standpoint, for at least for this year, and who knows what the money's going to be like next year, I let Parag deal with the cap. I don't understand any of it. So what do you think about the prognosticators who say, this is really an A trade for Carolina, but more like a C trade for the 49ers?
I have definite feelings about that. One, I don't think that your ability to find and develop undervalued players should stop you from acquiring stud players if you can. I just think that if a player like Christian McCaffrey becomes available, you should do what you can to go get him and not worry about, well, I have the ability to draft seventh rounders and have them be, you know, good players. That you get a Christian McCaffrey if you can. And then I often mention what Brian Windhorst says. If Christian McCaffrey, if we win a Super Bowl because of Christian McCaffrey, then it doesn't matter what we gave up to get him. It's a good trade. Because
this is Anthony Davis going to the Lakers all over again.
Yeah, I mean, you do that, and then you talk about with the Rams and what they're dealing with now and their lack of depth. Well, they got a championship, so yeah, F them picks for if what you don't want is to mortgage the future and then come up empty. But if you get a trophy, then if we get 6 behind this, then that's fine. I'm good. Yes. I'm good with plus. I think you really do have to put his injury. It makes a difference to me that he was touching the ball. He had 52% of Carolina's touches. I don't think that is for nothing when you start talking about his injury history. I mean, I don't think you look at the guys who have that kind of usage, like a Derrick Henry, you just, it's hard to hold up. And he's not even built like Derrick Henry. He's a completely different type of player. So to give him that type of usage, him breaking down is not a shock or a surprise to me. And I don't think he'll be used that way here. I know he's 26, and that's up there for a running back. At the end of this contract, he'll be 29. How many 29-year-old running backs? But the thing of it is, in this system, it's not like he's just going to be lining up in an I formation and running dives. I mean, you can put him out in the slot. You flex him out. He's not going to have the normal usage of a normal RB1, I don't think, especially when you talk about the ability for us to develop these other younger running backs, allows you the opportunity to use Christian McCaffrey more as a football player and not as your bell cow. So I'm good with it. I think, especially for this season and with the quarterback we have, I think his skill set helps Jimmy a lot. You've seen in the past 2 games, having him there in a position to be Jimmy's safety valve is something that it's not lost on me that Jimmy, he's had 2 of his better performances, as a 49er in these past 2 weeks. And I don't think that those things are, I don't believe that there's not a correlation, and I don't think that it's anything that happened, especially last week, is unsustainable. I think moving forward, am I expecting Jimmy to be that efficient for the rest of the season? No, but I think we can get some version of that every week.
All right, you had on your list of surprises the play of one Sammy Womack Jr. here.
Wow.
Explain.
Yeah, I mean, I had done a study last year on draft picks, defensive backs specifically, because we had our 2nd round pick and everybody wanted a corner. So I looked into how many defensive backs, I broadened it, play. My metric was 400 snaps and above a 60 PFF grade. And it was like 3%. It just doesn't happen for a defensive back to come in and contribute immediately in the NFL. And this dude is playing at a 70 grade and he's playing starter snaps. It's unheard of for a 5th round defensive back to do that. And it's just, and with with E-Man going out, it's needed. It's not like this was a luxury. We really have needed Womack to come. We needed his production.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was trying to think of a Bobby Womack pun, but I couldn't put it together by the time you were finished. Okay, so another one, Aaron Banks specifically, and the pass pro of the interior offensive line as a big surprise. And this is something that you are watching very closely. You send us the grades in our group
Mm-hmm,
pretty much every week.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and he had I don't have him in front of me, but I don't think he's given up a pressure this season, which is, again, that was, right at the top of my list in terms of things coming into the season. Big question mark is, he was basically a rookie along with Burford. He didn't play any snaps last year. So yeah, for him to be as stout as he is, particularly in pass protection, has been a revelation, because those guys, when you look at them and you watch them, both him and Burford, and they are monsters in the run game. When they get moved, they're just big dudes, and when they get to moving forward, they can just destroy guys. But you know, pass protection for us, throughout camp and early in the season was a problem. We were just getting our ass kicked all through. Our defensive line was killing our offensive line um in in camp, and he was right there. Wasn't like he was like the Sterling, Trent was, but Trent wasn't really even out there in the in camp. But so he was getting his ass kicked along with everybody else. So for him to show up the way he has really been a revelation.
Okay, so then we also have Hufanga, which especially in the early part of the
Oh
season, he was
man.
making some big plays, and he's always around the football. And for somebody who the one thing about him out of college was about the speed, he just has a nose for the ball. He knows where things are going. He may not make every play, but the fact that he's around the football, means that he's getting there before everybody else, and that's positive.
And he was supposed to be a liability in pass coverage. He was supposed to be somebody that defenses were going to isolate and try to get him one-on-one with their slots, and to try to pick on. But that 8 games in, that has not been the case. He is not. Now, I'm not saying he's not whoever. He's not Rob Woodson covering guys, but he hasn't been a liability. And when you couple that with the fact that he's he's even playing that way, and then when you add to the fact that he's definitely a plus when you can get him playing forward, and he's an excellent blitzer. um he just he will blow up a run blitz. If you allow him running the alley, is one of the coolest things in professional football to me. Is when he gets ahead of steam and he is just coming downhill, something is getting destroyed.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
him and Warner, like,
Oh
on the
yeah.
same field together is really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely and that to him be playing at that level definitely is one of the biggest surprises of the season.
And then the last one, I added this just because we've been talking about this. And when you draft a wide receiver, again, this goes back to Shanahan's rep, right? Like Shanahan's rep with offense, and he saw something in Ayuk. I think they may have drafted him a hair above where other teams had him, and so you're like, okay, this is Kyle's guy, and Ayuk has shown really good glimpses at times, and then other times, he's got 2 catches for 15 yards, and it's all Debo. With Debo not really being Debo yet, Ayuk has actually stepped up and he's got really good rhythm with Jimmy. They're connecting on third downs. We mentioned the last game, the game against the Rams, where they were so in rhythm that he was putting it on Ayuk's hip and Ayuk was just running without even skipping a beat. He's just everything's in stride. And that's not, you wouldn't say that's something that Jimmy does with a lot of receivers, right? That's not Jimmy's game. That's more of like a Brady thing or whatever. But the fact that those guys seem so comfortable with each other this year is really, really cool to see. Finally, because I think we all saw sort of like, okay, when is Ayuk gonna level up? And it seems like this season he's doing that.
He is. I mean, for our offense, because it's going to be tough to put up Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type numbers in this offense, because that's, we've all said if we're throwing it 40 times a game, there's something has gone terribly wrong. But in our offense, man, he has really stepped up and he is legit 1A. I think at this point, I feel comfortable saying that obviously Debo, I believe even with CMC, Debo is still our best offensive player. But I think that Ayuk is more than a wide receiver too at this point. I don't know how you want to categorize it, but I think that he is clearly a plus player in this offense. He is developed to that point, and he's making himself some money this season. He's going to get paid. I think he's going to get paid in the offseason. He has really stepped up.
So the Niners are running about 60 plays a game and 212. So that we divide that by 8. 26 and a half of those are running plays, it looks like. So the fact that Jimmy has actually pretty good stats, but he's also only thrown, 210 times or whatever it is, versus some of these other guys throw so much more than he does. So yeah, it's just based on what the offense does and how they, how Shanahan wants to win football games, or at least how he believes his team should win football games, which is, run first. And here's a question. We mentioned Mitchell. We've been waiting for Mitchell. He started the season out and we're like, oh my gosh, this guy, I think it's like 70 yards on like 10 carries in the first game. And then we never saw him again. He got hurt. How do you think, knowing that he came into the season, knowing that he was A1, gets hurt, steps back. Now he's playing behind a top flight player. Do you think he's going to have any adjustment with that? I mean, he didn't get all the snaps last year until sort of towards the end. So it's not like he's came in as a starter, but do you think that affects the way that he's going to play, having to play second fiddle to CMC?
Well, one would hope that rather than take it as a negative, it spurs him to when he, to make the most of his touches. And also, I was very intrigued by, they ran quite a few snaps with Wilson and CMC in the backfield together. So that is something that would be interesting to see with him and Mitchell. And with the flexibility and the versatility that somebody like CMC gives you, it allows you to still allow Mitchell to get RB1 snaps and have have CMC kind of be fullback or slot or just football player. Just let him get out there and just put him in position to make plays. And that, say what you want about Kyle, that's something he's always done well. He did it well when Kittle was our best offensive option. He wasn't confined to be, I've never seen a tight end line. The league really hadn't seen a tight end lineup as much as X as Kittle did in 19. Debo last year, and what, obviously that was kind of unprecedented. A wide receiver one getting those kind of snaps out of the backfield. So Kyle has a track record of putting guys in position to make plays. So I'm really excited to see how he's able to, get all these guys touches, because it's not wrong to think that it wouldn't be the first team that has had problems in many sports where there's just not enough balls if everybody's not touching the ball, they don't, have for everybody's not unselfish, because, there is a monetary component to that. If I'm not getting touches, that affects my money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially for a running back who often these guys don't even really get second deals.
Right.
So, here's what I like about it though. CMC, he's already shown an ability to be patient, and we know that, in this offense, a guy like Trey Sermon who danced a little bit and was impatient, was not good in this system. And so CMC's already shown, okay, the game against the Rams, he was really good. I like the idea that when we take him off the field, you're not really going to miss a beat in the run game. You'll miss a beat a little bit in the pass game on a play where Mitchell is in instead of Christian, but that's probably not going to be a lot. But when it comes to the patience and understanding the running game, like Mitchell was already a savant at it near the end of last season, and then we saw this season, like he came out of the gate on fire, and then he just got hurt. So you won't really have any degradation in your number two when it comes to the running game. So that will be kind of exciting to see, because that whoever's playing, if the running game is on point, the defense who they're playing against is not going to be able to just be like, okay, thank God Christian's out of the game. No, you get someone who's going to hit the hole just as hard as he does, and I think that could be pretty cool. And I imagine Kyle is salivating at that. You're not really like as good as Jeff Wilson was. He didn't necessarily have the explosiveness of both of these guys. He was more like your normal number two tough runner. You trusted him. Maybe the fumbles Kyle didn't like as much, but this is just a different element, and I think he's gonna be pretty excited to see what they got.
And Elijah Mitchell is clearly better than Jeff Wilson.
Yes,
and also maybe we just get more Elijah Mitchell running back one snaps, and we just put Christian at quarterback. How about
exactly. That? There you go. That'll be funny.
Give Jimmy some rest.
I mean, they could run like wildcat stuff with Christian at the quarterback. So
that was a great pass.
Yeah, exactly. Let's end with this, because that was the news of the week. Jeff Wilson did get traded, and Shelvin asked if we saw that Jeff Wilson supposedly requested a trade. And I think this comes from John Lynch's interview with Tim Kawakami, I believe. I haven't heard the podcast yet, but I know Tim Kawakami interviewed him. And it sounds like Jeff Wilson knew the deal, right? When you trade for Christian, okay, now I'm third team rather than even second team. And, he had pushed ahead of these younger players like Ty Davis Price and Jordan Mason. But then with Elijah Mitchell coming back, like you said, he's going to you get less snaps, contract coming up. He sort of saw the writing on the wall there. And it sounds like Lynch and Shanahan both really like him, and we're like, look, man, we want you to play. We're not going to trade you to our rival in the NFC, but we do want you to be happy, and we want you to have a good opportunity. And so they traded him to the Dolphins. Of course, they've got some friends over in that organization, so that probably helped it. But What did you think of that whole thing?
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like I said before that it was clear to me that with for those who aren't in the group or didn't see my post, with the Mitchell coming back, it had been clear that from the beginning they had intel that TDP and JP were sought after in the league, and that there was no way they'd be able to sneak them through waivers and get them onto the practice squad. So that's why they've been RB 3 and 4 throughout, and they cycled in Mac and I'm ready and whatnot, into filling in for Mitchell. But then once Mitchell came back, he would slide into RB2 with CMC being here. And that there just simply wasn't, if you look at the roster, they've consistently kept 4. And we really, with all of our other myriad of injuries, there really isn't another position that you could shorten up to keep Wilson as insurance. So, plus, I'm sure he wouldn't have been thrilled with the fact of just being on mothballs for the last 9 games of the season in a contract year. So, and not to say that they wouldn't have done that if they had the roster spot, if they felt that that was in their best interest, because teams always are going to do what's in their best interest. But if they can get a draft pick, which serves them, and they can put him in a position, and with over there in Miami with Edmonds going,
he scored
to
today, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he played well today. And with Edmonds going out in the Chubb trade, they had a spot for Wilson. So not only was he going there, but he was gonna have a role. So that's a win-win for both situations. We get a pick, he gets to go in and put some more good tape out there in a contract year. So I mean that's one of those rare and everybody wins situations. So it was good. I'm glad, and I'm sure again, one of the things people say about Kyle, like him or not, his players say that he is a straight shooter and that he's not gonna BS you. So I'm sure he was straight with Wilson that and Wilson is smart enough to see the writing on the wall, but I'm sure Kyle was like, look, this is what it is. There's just there are no reps here for you anymore. So yeah, I would imagine after that, if you have that conversation, yeah, I would request a trade too.
And my only worry here, understanding all that in the business of football, is Christian and Elijah both kind of injury prone.
Yeah.
And if something happens to one of them, then who slides up? Is it going to be Mason? Is it going to be Ty Davis Price? Because Coleman's on the practice squad. And so there's some maneuvering there, and there's going to be an opportunity, but also this is a veteran team who wants to go, far. Are you going to have to rely on a rookie who has no experience or any reps really, in big moments? That's my main worry about this situation.
And it's valid because in real time we can see what the answer is. The answer is those dudes have not gotten reps. When before Christian got here, it was Jeff Wilson and Debo, and then Tevin getting reps. It was those guys did not, as we laymen thought, those guys would be able to step into the breach and take some of that weight, but clearly Kyle is not comfortable with that. So it's a legitimate concern as we get further on down the road that if we were to lose one of them, then is it just the fact that now Mitchell or CMC has to carry more of the load? Is it going to be Tevin Campbell? Is it going to be another veteran replacement level minimum contract player, a Marlon Mack type guy who we bring in to take those reps? Or are we going to be forced to rely on those two guys, but which seems like, from what I've seen, the little that we've seen of both of them, they're really different kind of running backs than Mitchell or CMC. They're not. I don't know how much we'll ever get from them. Well, I won't say ever. That's a long time.
And the explanation that came out of the draft was that Kyle's the running backs that he's had have been smaller and a little bit brittle, and they wanted bigger backs who wouldn't get hurt as easily. And so that's, they draft Price because he's a bigger dude. But it's just, I don't know if the offense if suits him as well as it suits a guy who's a little bit more shifty. So, but
well, it seems, I don't know. My thought was those guys make a lot more sense to me with Trey at cornerback. You can do a bit more inside zone run and whatnot when, you like it or not, if you have Trey as an option to be your outside guy running that inside stuff, kind of makes more sense to me. But again, that is not an option anymore. So I don't know with Jimmy as quarterback how much sense those guys make, because I don't know what they're going to give you in the pass game. If you lose a Mitchell or a CMC, I think somebody like Tevin Coleman, he just makes sense because he's a professional, and he's not gonna give you a bunch of big plays, but he's not gonna kill you. He can pass protect.
In a pinch, he's not gonna make a mistake a rookie would make.
Right. So I would think that if one of those two guys go down, he's gonna plug in, and that's what it's gonna be. I think those guys will be beneficial on down the road. I don't know how much they're gonna give us this season.
All right. Well, that is it for us here on this show. We will be back after the game on Sunday night against the Chargers. It's a big one. It's a good opportunity to showcase. I'm sure NBC is going to be all over Christian, showcasing him like crazy in this game. So Rod and I will be back and we'll recap that game after Sunday night football. So for Rod, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out. Peace.